Hey.
Alright, Joel, so there were a lot of people that doubted Brandon Miller when he was selected second overall in the most recent NBA draft. I was included in that group, not necessarily because I didn't like Brandon Miller as a prospect, I just like Scoot Henderson a little bit better. But I have to say that, over the past month or so, Brandon Miller has been hooping. He won the Rookie of the Month award for the month of January. I kept on seeing him having big games and having some nice highlights, and it was really nice to finally just sit down and actually watch some Brandon Miller. And my main takeaway was that this was actually a great draft pick by the Charlotte Hornets, and he's gonna be getting buckets for quite some time. Anyway, if we look at the last 10 games that Brandon Miller has played in, he's averaging almost 23 points a game, over 4 rebounds, almost 3 assists, and he's doing all that 40% three-point shooting while taking almost 8 threes a game. Very, very impressive stats for a rookie, especially since I feel like this is usually the time of the season where most rookies hit that wall and see a drop-off in production, whereas Brandon Miller has been the exact opposite. It took him a little bit to get going, and he's now playing the best basketball of his young career. So what is it about Brandon Miller's game that's so exciting? Why should we continue to pay attention to him for the foreseeable future? Well, the first thing that's going to jump out to you is his shooting. He has a lightning quick release. He has a pretty high release point as well, which makes it just out of the gates a really tough shot to contest for defenders. Plus, it also helps that he can just knock down shots from pretty much anywhere on the court. In the game I rewatched where they played the Pacers just a night ago, he was absolutely just rifling from the three-point line, had some really tough makes, and a really deep make as well. So all of this comes together to say that Brandon Miller is a deadly, deadly shooter. But he's also able to score off the dribble as well. He had this one really beautiful crossover into a pull-up midi that, I don't want to start throwing names out there, but it does resemble a certain, superstar, historic type guy that also hits a lot of crossovers, jump shots, that has, tall and a quick release and is a forward and might be rhyming with Devin Corrant. But for real though, Brandon Miller is also very capable of getting to the rim. He is really good at the triple threat and more explosive than I imagined him to be. He's not the greatest finisher in the world yet, but again, he's only a rookie. But one thing that really did jump out to me is, again, just to go back to that explosiveness, he is tremendous in pick and rolls and just off the catch and triple threat in general. He had this one possession where he rejected the screen and sold it with a really nice quick jab step and then just exploded to the rim for a beautiful and one layup. And if there is one play from this entire game that could get you excited for Brandon Miller, I think this might be the one. But while we're on the topic of exciting plays to get you excited for Brandon Miller, he also had a few really great defensive plays that also were very unexpected. And this is another area of his game where, I think he's going to be, just based off of what I've seen so far, I think he's going to end up being very good at that area of his game. It's just, it might take a little bit to get there. Anyway, he had 2 really nice blocks in the game against the Pacers. One in transition, played great straight up defense against Benedict Mathurin, didn't foul and ended up getting the block because of it. And then there was this play where he played some elite rim protection from the weak side help defender spot and blocked the Miles Turner dunk attempt. And again, not to keep on bringing Kevin Durant's name into this video because I don't want to make the Brandon Miller, Kevin Durant, full comparison, but there are a lot of similarities in small aspects of their game. And I say that because Kevin Durant is also someone who came into the league as a scorer, but over time really saw improvement as a defender, specifically in that rim protection area. If you guys remember back to his Golden State Warrior days, then you'll remember that during his time there, it wasn't the thing that was talked about the most, obviously, but during his time there, he improved a ton as a rim protector, and it allowed the Warriors to go with that small ball lineup with Kevin Durant at the 5. So again, I'm not saying that Brandon Miller, the Hornets should be running him at the 5 for stints and certain substitution patterns, but it's something to keep your eye on, okay? The rim protection is there, it's not consistent, but it's there. And that's also how I felt about the passing from Brandon Miller. I had this feeling, at least watching the game, that the ball kind of sticks in his hands a lot, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but there were just a lot of possessions where he would, try and drive to the hoop, he'd get stopped, he'd pick up his dribble, and then he would just look around trying to find an open teammate. And I don't know if that's just a Charlotte Hornets offense being terrible thing, or if it's just that he doesn't want to turn the ball over. Either way, it was just weird. Again, not necessarily a good or bad thing. But there were also a few possessions once he was knocking down shots, and it was evident to the Pacers that he was the only real threat offensively for the Hornets. They started just straight up doubling him off of pick and rolls, and he did a really good job of passing out of these double teams, retreating, and then allowing his team to play 4-on-3. And again, because it's the Hornets, it didn't really lead to that many buckets, but the process was there. I'm also just excited to see him continue to improve as a passer out of the pick and roll, because he already looks very comfortable running those actions as the ball handler. So I would assume that we're going to start seeing more assists down the line. I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up being like a 4 or 5, maybe even 6 assists per game type guy once he's, deeper into the league and starts hitting his prime. But yeah, overall, I don't want to make this a whole Brandon Miller versus Scoot thing, because they've both had different paths so far in their early careers. They're doing different things, they're different players. But one thing I will say is that the Charlotte Hornets and just Charlotte Hornet fan base in general should be happy with the selection. I know it might have seemed like a bit of a long shot at the time, at least again that's how I felt, but so far it is looking like it is already safe to say that Brandon Miller was at the very least a good, if not great, selection at that number 2 spot. And overall, outside of already being a pretty good scorer of the basketball, it's gonna take a lot of time for Brandon Miller and the rest of his game to catch up to make him a formidable NBA player. But I think Charlotte is a really good spot for him to do that, because as we all know, Hornets haven't necessarily been a good team in a while. They have good players, but it just hasn't really worked out with injuries and coaching staff, front office. It's a mess in Charlotte. So while it could be frustrating to not see this full team together, with LaMelo keeps getting injured, Gordon Hayward seems to always be injured, one of their centers between Mark Williams and Nick Richards always seems to be injured, it has been really fun to just watch Brandon Miller be the show and be the engine for this offense, because it's leading to a lot of fun things, it's leading to a lot of mistakes, and overall, it is all essential for his development as a player. They mentioned it on the broadcast during the Pacers game, but it is actually cool that Brandon Miller is getting this opportunity with all these injuries, because night in and night out, he is facing the opposing team's best defender, and he is the focal point for what the defense is trying to stop. And again, over these last 10 games, over the last month, he's been hooping out of his mind. So that's all great signs to see for, again, the development of Brandon Miller. So yeah, he's about 40 games into his career, and he has me sold on his future already. I hope that as he continues to ball out, and hopefully we get more eyes on him, even though he is again playing for a terrible Charlotte Hornets team. I hope that again, just as we get more eyes on him, that more people will realize that he is going to be a really good special player. At the very least, he is going to be, again, getting buckets for a very long time. But that's all I got for this one. As always, if you enjoyed, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, all of those good things, and I'll catch y'all in the next one.